This is the Jocko Underground podcast number 33. Echo Charles is here.
Yes, I am.
And me, Jocko Willink. So there's a phrase that I use from time to time, and that is intent has a smell. What that means is when you're doing something and you're thinking that you're going to slide by other people and you're going to make a maneuver that they're not going to see and you think you're going to get away with it, well, the intent that you have in your heart has a smell and people can smell it. Now look, smells can vary in their strength, right? There's some smells you can barely smell. There's some smells that smell really bad. But it's very good to recognize that your intent does have a smell. And if you think you can just go around stinking, you're wrong, and you need to put that in check. So I started thinking about that, and it started bringing me back. I was thinking, well, how is that? How does our intent have a smell? Like, because clearly it doesn't have a scent that hits our olfactory nerves and processes into our brain that way, right? But you know what I mean. Everybody knows what. As soon as I say that, people are like, oh yeah, because we can all sense it. So I was thinking back to some earlier underground podcasts that we did, talking about body language and how you read some of that stuff, what people are lying. And so I wanted to start with that, but there was something else that I wanted to tie into the conversation. So a couple things. This is from a website called forensiccolleges.com. Top 10 signs that someone's lying. Number one, change in speech patterns. So this is the way someone's talking all of a sudden changes. Cue, right? Oh, so that's your intent seeping out. Number two, use of non-congruent gestures. Similar, because now we were, using our hands in a certain way. Now all of a sudden we start doing something different. Wait a second. There's something going on here. And here's what's interesting. You don't really, I think if you didn't know any of these, people are still picking up on it.
Yeah,
this is in the subconscious. You can feel it when you ever walk away from a conversation and you feel a little bit, you're suspect, or as my kids call it, sus.
A little bit sus.
A little bit sus. Why is that? Because you picked up on these signals. You don't even know what they are, but you picked up on them. Not saying enough. There's a thing here. When truth-telling witnesses describe what they saw and are asked, is there anything else? More details are revealed. But when liars are asked to go beyond their prepared stories, few to no other details are offered. That's why you get the Reservoir Dogs, that story. You've seen Reservoir Dogs?
Yeah. What story?
The whole story about the dogs and the LAPD, and he's got a bag full of marijuana, and he's got all these details that he works into the story, and it makes the story believable. And he has to tell that story over and over again until it becomes part of him. But most people aren't going to go through that kind of detail. So you ask them one extra question. I ever tell you about the time the tax fraud people called me? So this was interesting. I was getting audited for real by the IRS.
Sure.
And as I'm getting audited for real by the IRS, I'm at an event. And there's a break in the event, and I get a text. And luckily the break came right around lunch. So I get a text from my wife. She says, it's like, the IRS is going to call you. You have to answer. There's something going on. And I go, okay. So the phone rings, and sure enough, it's the IRS, right? And they start, it was early on. Did you hear about these scams where people are like, hey, listen, we're going to have to freeze your bank account. We're going to have to stop your credit. We actually have contacted law enforcement. So they give you this whole freaking
Yeah, that happened
thing.
A few times. Or they tried it.
Well, what's funny is my son, and this was probably 5 years ago. So my son was probably 13 at the time. And my wife is talking. She has this quote IRS agent on the speakerphone, and my son's going, it's a scam. It's a scam. But still, it freaked out my wife. Right. Maybe my son didn't know that we were actually for real getting audited. Right. And even that, for me, it made me go, wait a second. I know I'm for real getting audited right now by the IRS, and now they're calling me. So, but as soon as he kind of laid into it, he's like, hey, this is so-and-so. And he had a foreign accent. He's just a little bit of a slight foreign accent. But here's what's funny. I said, after he gave his spiel about how they're going to flag all my accounts and freeze this and all this stuff, I go, where are you calling me from right now? And he goes, Virginia. And I go, where in Virginia? What city? I lived in Virginia. And there was a long hesitation, and then he said, whatever, some town. And I go, what's the weather there like today? And then he just was wide open. But that was it. So he didn't go deep enough on his lie. He didn't cover his story well enough. So that's why asking some questions when you think somebody's a little bit sus. Here's the flip side of that. Number 4, saying too much. Researchers from the Harvard Business School determined that liars trying to deceive stretch the truth with too many words. Since such a liar may make things up as they go, they tend to add excessive detail to convince themselves of what others are saying. Very interesting, right? God, that's the person that has all these details. Again, Reservoir Dogs. Well, you remember that? Like, you remember that little detail? Why are you throwing that in there? Oh, okay. So we got a little dichotomy going on here.
Yeah.
Too much detail, not enough detail. Unusual rise or fall in vocal tone. That's, again, I think anytime somebody's mannerisms or voice changes, there's something suspect going on. Direction of their eyes. Much has been discussed on the topic of truthfulness and eye contact. A commonly held cultural belief in the United States is if a person isn't making eye contact, they aren't telling the truth, whereas in other cultures, eye contact can be considered untrustworthy in a given context. What does it say? A research study conducted in 2015 by the University of Michigan and featured in Time magazine showed that 70% of people in 120 media clips lied while maintaining direct eye contact. Yeah. I think you get some people that if they're looking you right in the eyes and you're like, I did not have sex with that woman, right? That was the classic Bill Clinton.
Sure.
Just straight up, full on, bold statement. I think people get that. Again, there's a dichotomy where they're looking you right in the eye and they're telling you, and you're like, a little too rehearsed for me.
Yeah.
You're trying a little too hard. Freaking trying a little too hard with this stuff. But the other thing you notice with kids, you got the kids and you ask them a question about something. If they're lying, they're going to look away. They'll look away. And you know what's interesting for me? If I'm talking to you and I'm trying to explain something to you, I notice that I will not look at your eyes when I'm thinking about where I'm going or how I'm going to pull this together or whatever. Yeah. So sometimes when I'm thinking about something, I kind of look away and then I look back. I'll look away to think. I don't know why I do that. Do you do that?
Yeah.
Is that normal?
I think so. I feel like that's normal.
But then there's a thing where I'm looking away because I'm making up a new part of the lie. Right? Like if I was trying to explain to you, hey, from a leadership perspective, here's what you see what I just did? Like that's for real. I'll do that. I'm talking to you and you ask me a question about leadership and I go, listen, here's the thing. When you get in that situation, I'm looking away because I'm kind of putting my thoughts together. Yeah. Now, if you were like, hey, did you take my credit card? And I'm like, I look away like, how could I have taken your credit card? I haven't even seen your wallet since we were at the gym training yesterday and I was in the locker room and you weren't. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Next one, covering their mouth or eyes. Many people want to cover up a lie or hide from their reaction to it, which is why they may put their hands over their eyes or mouths when letting out an untruth. Okay. I don't know. I had a professor in college that she covered her mouth when she talked every single time she talked with her hand. Yeah,
I do that sometimes.
So that was, I don't know. I think she was telling me the truth a lot, even though she was doing that.
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean cover up? Because I'll do this. Like I'll do this kind of stuff. I won't go like this.
Well, no, but I think what you just did is it. Yeah, Little hand up in front of the whatever.
Isn't that like a lack of confidence
yeah, that's what I think this professor had that I had in college.
Yes.
I think she lacked confidence.
So one can kind of be linked.
She was not from America, so her English wasn't great. Yeah. And then I just think she was kind of embarrassed. And so, she would just cover her mouth when she talked, which was bizarre. I mean, you have to do it a lot to get me to notice that right now. And it's been, I don't know, many years, 20 something years since I went to college.
Yeah. Huh?
So, excessive fidgeting. Think about what a kid does when asked where the last cookie went. They may lick their lips, look at their nails, or even shake hands, and then tell a big whopper of a lie. Yeah. Finger pointing. The act of pointing at, this is literal or figurative, the act of pointing towards something or someone else with gestures or words may signal a surefire desire to take the focus off an individual. Cool. Lie detector tests. I've had 2 friends do lie detector tests that debriefed me on it.
Yeah.
And one of them was a super kind of honest guy, and he got crushed by the lie detector test. It just as soon as they, because they make you lie to it so you can see what it does.
Yeah. And
as soon as they even started to get to the thing that he was supposed to lie about, it went off the rails.
Huh. What? So what? It said he was lying when he wasn't
lying?
They
say, hey, okay, Echo, think of a number between 1 and 5. Mm-hmm. You got it in your head? Mm-hmm. Okay, now when I ask you if that's the number, say no. Mm-hmm. And I go, what, were you thinking of 1? Mm-hmm. And you go, no. Were you thinking of 2? And you say no. Were you thinking of 3? And if you were thinking of 3, all of a sudden that thing starts going off the rails. So that's how they set you up, where you realize, like, damn, this thing is good to go.
Yeah. But isn't there all kinds of ways to beat the lie detector?
That's why, there are ways to beat it. And so I had another friend, and again, this is weird because he was not as honest of a person and kind of sometimes lied a lot about like little things. You know, people that like just kind of habitually lie about stuff.
Yeah, psychos.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't a psycho. He's a good guy. He just like had that weird personality trait. Mm-hmm. And this is what's interesting. He had to take a lie detector test too. And he got back and I said, well, how was that lie detector test? He goes, I flatlined it, meaning he just didn't get picked up, which could have been a lie because he was kind of a liar, and that sounds really cool, right? Doesn't it sound cool? Like, yeah, dude, that's super cool. Yo, damn, dude, you're freaking awesome. Or he could have been telling the truth, but he just lies all the time, so it's just no factor for him just to be like, no, I never did that.
Right.
So, and both these guys were going for, jobs in government agencies that require you to take it. So, this is a weird one. Self-identifying as a good liar. Perhaps the easiest way to spot a liar is to let them do it for you. This study showed that good liars mostly told little lies to colleagues and friends in person, focused. That's kind of what was going on with my friend that was a bit of a liar. You just like tell these little lies, but all the time.
Yeah.
And it's sort of at the group. It's almost like that idiosyncrasy that everyone just kind of gets it and just move on with it,
Yeah.
Like, oh, that guy in jiu-jitsu that, let's say taps too easy, right? And so you're like, that's just, but he's all our friends, so we're just going to deal with it, whatever. Yeah. No big deal. This guy would just like tell little, like basically innocent white lies, but all the time.
And what though? Like, how like when someone lies, let's say a normal person's gonna lie, you can see the clear benefit of their lie, like to keep them out of trouble or to whatever, maybe get them some kind of reward or whatever. But like these in my experience, I know a few people like this where he didn't even have to lie about that. Like it didn't make that much sense. That definitely
is true. Yeah, where if I tell you, hey dude, I was out till freaking 1:00 in the morning last night and I still got up at 4. Aren't I badass, right? And you're like, yeah, you're badass. But 1:00 wasn't good enough, so I'm like, dude, I was out till 3 a.m.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
It just makes no sense.
Yeah, it's weird.
Right? But sometimes people, they just want to add a little kicker on it.
Right.
The other thing, and I've told you this, I've talked to you about storytelling, right? Yeah. Where I want you to feel what I felt. Mm-hmm. And so when the mortar landed, and it was 50 meters away from me, and it scared the living shit out of me, and I was like freaking hit the ground, and I was shaken up. Well, when I tell you that story, I want you to feel that.
Yes.
So then I'm like, dude, this freaking mortar landed right next to me.
Right.
Well, how far? Like 5 meters away. You know what I'm saying? So I'm exaggerating.
But that's different, though. I feel like that's like not in the realm of like sociopath or whatever. Like that's not a weird pathology, in my opinion. Like people
so far,
exaggerate.
So far, no one that I've talked about is in the realm of sociopath. Like, I know who you're talking about then. People that are just freaking, like, they're out there and they're just lying, just don't care about anything but themselves at all.
I know a guy like that,
Yeah.
And
I've known people like that over the years.
it's weird, man.
Yeah, it's weird.
Well, the guy that I knew said stuff, like elaborate stuff that is not only was really easy to go disprove, but it had to do with like other people. Like he said he was like hooking up with this girl who was literally our friend. It's not like he was like some girl in Canada or something. It was like our friend. Like I could literally just call her right now, you know?
Yeah.
And he'd say, have this whole elaborate, it was weird, man. And then when you find out, you're like, you're almost scared to confront him about it. 'Cause you're like, bro, what is this guy capable of, you know?
Yeah.
But it is odd. For real, bro.
That reminds me
It's
of
weird.
Theo Vaughn was like, he said he's had like a fear of being murdered.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's what you have. This dude, well, how else do I know what else he's going to do?
Yeah, man.
He's lying about hooking up with this chick. He might put an ice pick in my neck.
Fuck you, man.
Okay, so there's some of the things, but this is actually what kind of got me back wanting to talk about this, just because I think this is very interesting. This is the idea of smelling intent, but from a very narrow focus. And the narrow focus... That is a little excerpt of what we are doing on the Jocko Underground podcast. So if you want to continue to listen, go to jockounderground.com and subscribe. And we're doing this to mitigate our reliance on external platforms so we are not subject to their control. And we're doing it so we can give you more control, more interaction, more direct connections, better communications with us, strengthen this legion of troopers that are in the game with us. So thank you. It's jockounderground.com. It costs $8.18 a month. And if you can't afford to support us, we can still support you. Just email assistance@jockounderground.com and we'll get you taken care of. Until then, we will see you mobilized underground.